Carolina, the assistant Democratic leader in the House of Representatives. I caught up with him just a short time ago, asked him about the latest state of play.
Well, I feel good about it. I am not as confident as I was a few days ago, but I'm just as hopeful as I ever was. And I think that we're going to get there. And the reason my confidence level is not what it was is because I was pretty confident that we could get to $4 or $5 trillion. I'm not too sure we'll do that. But will we do what we need to do and required under the law? I think so.
So $1.2 trillion is the base target, the lowest for the super committee. You think at a minimum you can get there?
Well, that's a requirement. We have set a goal of 1.5. I think the legislation even mentions that. I would hope that we do at least 1.5. I would like for the 1.5 to be a down payment on a bigger number. And I still think there's a chance that we could do that. But I'm not confident that we will. I'm hopeful that we will.
Now, we heard last week, of course, Republicans have put on the table the notion of $300 billion in new tax revenue. They suggested that was a major shift in their position. Have they been willing, as far as you can tell, to go beyond that? Because we heard from Democrats that was still not acceptable.
The reason because you put $300 billion on the table, and then you want to take $800 billion off of the table. That's a net of $500 decrease in revenue. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I'm a history major. But I know math a little better than that. And so I think that the media have focused on the 300 and never have they focused on the other end of that deal. We'll do this in exchange for $800 some odd billion in additional tax cut for wealthy people. That, as they say down south, that dog won't hunt.
So that's a non-starter, but have you gotten a sense of flexibility on their part on that issue?
Well, I think that the big deal here is whether or not we on the Democratic side are willing to make some structural changes in entitlements. And I like to say that's only if Republicans are willing to make some structural changes in taxes and other revenue. We ought to trade structure for structure, not this dynamic scoring business that if you do this, it will yield that. No. Let's look at the tax code, the structure of entitlement, and that's where the exchange ought to be.
Let me just ask you finally, sir, if I could, this idea of a two-step process. Perhaps you all agree on some smaller upfront number, both for taxes and perhaps for entitlement reform changes, and you give the committees of jurisdiction the obligation, the mandate, to come up with additional savings down the road, perhaps even into next year. Is that something you're open to, and doesn't that effectively punt many of the decisions to these committees of jurisdiction, maybe complicate things?
No, not as long as that smaller number is the 1.2. I'm all for a two-step process if we have a $1.2 trillion down payment and then $4 trillion going forward. Now, all of this would have to include the overseas contingency savings that we expect to get. The CBOs are there, $917 billion. And with that $917 billion, I would love to see us do some things like a big jobs program, infrastructure, create an infrastructure back, create some jobs. Let's fix that so-called sustainable growth rate, the doctor's fix. Get that done on a permanent basis. Let's do something about the alternative minimum tax. Do all of that. I would love to see all that as a part of this deal.